Welcome back to PD Insider. My name is Craig Miller of the Practising Law Institute. This is the second part of my interview with Denise Robinson of the Still Center. The focus of our conversation is the PD's role in creating and sustaining a firm's culture for well-being. Let's think a little bit now more about the core job functions and responsibilities of the PD professional. Mm-hmm. And based on your observations of many client firms, how would you describe that? The core functions, and is there ever really a sort of a typical or prototypical PD out there?
I think all the PDs will hopefully cheer what I'm about to say, which is, while there may be what is written in the job description, there's so much more, right, to any PD's job. They really do reach far and wide in their responsibilities within any legal employer, within any law firm, and even within the law school environment, because a number of law schools are really starting to shift from just sort of career services to more of a career and professional development type of model. So having said that, some of the core responsibilities that come immediately to mind in my experience, having worked alongside PDs and then also working with PDs through my clients now, are training and education, whether that's putting on CLE programming, whether it's attending to providing opportunities for technical skill building, or what I like to refer to as professional skill building, often referred to as soft skills, but incredibly important skills to have, as well as in being engaged in performance evaluations, in terms of orchestrating that process. And it truly is an orchestration to make all of that happen, to ensure that attorneys are getting the feedback, and even outside of the formal performance evaluation process. All of that is something that PDs are doing. In many organizations, I'm also starting to see PDs be involved in aspects of coaching and career advising. Some of that can lead to or extend into things like outplacement, to help people find, their next opportunity, right? Not just thinking about this firm or this organization as the end all for one's career, but thinking about how can we help you continue to be essentially a friend, right, of the organization, even once you leave this organization. So those are just some of the things that come to mind. I'm sure there are others as well, but like I said, their roles and responsibilities are extensive.
Given all of those responsibilities, what is the relationship of the PD team to support and training of wellness programs?
Right. In my experience, especially until recently, where we are starting to see more firms have dedicated roles to well-being, which is still not, I wouldn't say something that is in most law firms, even most very large law firms, but it is starting to evolve. However, well-being programming is still happening, and has been happening certainly since the ABA Hazelden study that I mentioned, and the work of the Institute for Wellbeing in Law, and probably even before that. And so PD, because again, they touch so many different aspects of the life cycle of lawyers, they are often responsible for certainly a part of the well-being program that is going on. And I would say particularly with respect to lawyers, in my experience, if we're talking about staff, that responsibility tends to go to HR.
So like you said, it's not typical to have a dedicated well-being
Correct.
role within the organization. So it does typically come to the PDs.
It does.
And, is it a proper fit at the end of the day? Mm-hmm. And, so how, with all of those things that we talked about, how does it avoid becoming just one more item on a PD's to-do list?
Right. I think it can be. I definitely think many PDs are equipped with the skills, certainly, and certainly care about the well-being of the attorneys that they are providing services to. And So in that way, I definitely think that it can work well within the responsibilities. I do worry, frankly, often about just, again, the volume, right, of responsibilities that individuals in PD roles have. And so a way that I have seen be helpful in terms of trying to kind of balance that out so that it does not become an add-on is to really do an inventory of the kinds of programming that they're already doing that, fits sort of nicely within the PD realm, and see, are there aspects that are very much targeting different issues that we're trying to support in terms of attorney wellness. And if there are, it may just be a matter of being more explicit about how this particular program, this particular initiative, this particular structure is also supportive of attorney well-being. So that's one thing that I see. And then another thing is to think about, well, maybe you did that inventory and you found, well, we don't have a ton of well-being programming, but we would like to, and yet we don't have more bodies here to, do a whole lot of extra programming. To think about how it could be incorporated into well-being programming, could be incorporated into what is already happening. An idea that comes to mind around that is often PDs are responsible for helping to orchestrate attorney retreats. And I mean, the word retreat kind of lends itself, right, to wellness and well-being. So thinking about, okay, are there aspects probably already happening as part of that retreat that would support attorney well-being? Are there other things that we can do in this setting that we're doing the retreat anyway? Are there things that we can do from an explicit standpoint that support well-being?
All right, so that's good. So looking at it another way, then integrating the responsibility for well-being into the PD's role can actually enhance what they're able to accomplish as PDs.
Yes, I definitely think so. PDs are often the people that attorneys turn to, especially amongst associates. And then if those associates then go on to be partners and, have a long relationship with the PD staff, they're often the individuals, those attorneys are going to share what challenges they are having that are often have something to do with well-being, especially, again, if we think about that multifaceted approach to well-being. And so if they're already aware of some of the ways in which attorneys are struggling with mental health or with their social well-being or what have you, that can help inform the programming that they're doing, the structures that they're thinking about putting in place, the new policies that need to be, written and so on, that can help address some of those issues.
Oh, good. So they do align, can align.
Absolutely. I think so.
And specifically, though, what do you see PDs being asked to deliver in support of well-being initiatives?
I think I see a lot of training and, really more of kind of educational programming, or activities. And so thinking about things like many organizations have things like well-being, kind of like a fitness challenge, right? That may happen once or twice a year, or some type of fair where different types of practitioners are brought in who support aspects of attorney well-being or legal professionals more generally. And PDs can have a role in that, as well as the coaching that I mentioned as well. So in terms of the career coaching and career advising, I think well-being is absolutely coming up as part of those conversations, just, again, organically. And so I think those are the two main areas where I see PDs being asked to deliver those services.
Okay, good. Thinking about some of the sort of PD adjacent functions that we see in law firms, such as recruiting, compliance training, employee engagement work. How do you see wellness being integrated into people who occupy those roles?
Yes, I do see a number of my former colleagues in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space doing quite a bit of well-being work. And also I have been brought in by those individuals to do essentially an integration of DEI in a well-being program. And so that's an example where I do see some of those PD adjacent roles doing well-being well-being work. And then certainly HR. That's, I would say, the big area when we're talking about professional staff, where that responsibility lives often with the HR team to put on, in addition to all the other things that they are doing in terms of benefits and compensation and all of the things, hiring and so on, all the in and outflow of people within the organization. HR teams are also often responsible for the well-being work that is happening in a targeted way towards professional staff.
All right, good, interesting. Let's talk a little bit now about the role of mindfulness. What is the role of mindfulness in well-being?
Mm-hmm. I see mindfulness as a capacity builder for well-being. Well-being does have all of these different aspects, many that I probably couldn't even name here, right? It affects the word being, right? That's why I often use well-being instead of wellness, because it reminds us that as human beings, right, we are multifaceted, we're complex, and all of that complexity has to be attended to. And what mindfulness focuses on is present moment awareness and non-judgment. Those are the two main elements of mindfulness. And what those do, developed over time, is to help us just be aware of what our experiences are internally as well as externally. And then when we have that awareness, we can do so without sort of beating ourselves up for any one of those experiences that, perhaps we don't like. Something didn't go well at work, today. And often what we do is we ruminate over it and kind of get stuck there. What mindfulness encourages us to do is to just be here, because that's the only thing we ultimately have control over. And once we can do that, once we have that awareness of what's happening right now, and doing so without the sort of snap judgment about, is this good? Is this bad? Am I good? Am I bad? As a result of these experiences, then we can make some choices to do things perhaps in a different way, going forward in a way that serves us better going forward. And so all of that, to me, helps us in those complexities that we have as human beings, and well-being being a part of that.
Right. Be present, be here now.
Yes.
Don't rush to conclusions that something bad is going to happen.
Absolutely. Well said. Very well said.
So, Denise, can you discuss the Mindfulness for Lawyers series that you've been working on in conjunction with PLI?
Sure. It is part of a larger series called The Well-Rounded Lawyer. And in the Mindfulness for Lawyers series, they are a series of episodes, very short, bite-sized episodes of me talking about different mindfulness strategies and practices that lawyers can use to deal with very common stressors that we experience in the course of practicing law. So there's animation showing different scenarios that lawyers often face. And then I'm over that animation talking about the different things that they could do from a mindfulness standpoint to help address those stressors or those distractions, or to be more intentional about their work.
Oh, sounds like fun.
It is.
Can you share a few tips and tactics that you might have discussed in that program?
Sure. So one of my favorites is how we can use our breath, which of course we're breathing, right? As long as we are alive, we are breathing. But we can use our breath in very specific ways to deal with chronic stress, for example, to deal with the kind of fight or flight reaction that we're often having, not from actual threats, but just from the pressure that many lawyers experience from the work. And so how can we use our breath in specific ways to sort of tap back into what is known as the sort of rest and digest mode that we are supposed to be in most of the time as human beings. Another practice or strategy is something called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique, which is a way of kind of reorienting ourselves when we find that we are distracted. And who among us is not dealing with a ton of distractions today? So that's a technique that we go into in that series. And then another one is compassion practice, so that we can help with the, again, the relationship building, the connection aspect that is so important to being an effective lawyer. There are specific mindfulness practices that help us, what I call it's sort of pro-social strength building is how I refer to those practices. So we go into one of those in the series.
Well, that sounds great. I think we would all agree that compassion is something that we could all use a little bit more of in our daily lives.
Absolutely. For ourselves and others, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, great. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I'd like to thank my guest, Denise Robinson of the Still Center, for sharing her insights. Check out her bite-sized learning series, Mindfulness for Lawyers, on pli.edu. We look forward to you joining us for another edition of PLI's PD Insider. This is Craig Miller of the Practising Law Institute. Thank you, be well, and do great things.